It's like,
I've started the recording, and it is 7 o'clock on Monday, April the 12th. So I will call to order this meeting of the trustees of the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust. The meeting is being conducted via Zoom video conference in accordance with the temporary suspension and enhancement to open meeting law requirements by Governor Baker. Zoom instructions are on the agenda posted on the town website. Meeting will be recorded by the town. Anyone else desiring to record the meeting may do so only after notifying the chair and may not interfere with the conduct of the meeting in doing so. Note, I will not be recording the executive session. Thank you. Announcements and public comment, and we don't have any members of the public here. So first item is our standard agenda item on status reports relating to housing related activities. And I would note that I did submit the final version of the bylaw to the town administrator for appearance on a select board meeting agenda. And it's not on tomorrow's meeting agenda, so I have emailed Rebecca Eldridge, and she has asked me to submit another copy, and hopefully that will get taken care of. I also sent to the select board, just for their comment, not necessarily approval, the draft declaration of trust. I made one change without your approval, and that was, there was a statement in the declaration of trust about the criteria the select board should use in appointing trustees. And I felt that that belonged in the bylaw rather than in the declaration of trust, so I moved it. Because it really governs how the trust is organized. It really isn't important for a third party dealing with the trust to know how the select board arrived at appointments. Community Development Partnership has an affordable housing trust training on the 16th, which I believe is Thursday. And they have a spring open session peer group tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect that's in the morning, but I haven't looked yet. I did forward to Shelley Goring the proposed makeup of a committee to scope and plan out the grant. Have not heard back from her. She was on vacation when I submitted it. And I did see where Elaine responded to the attorney for Kathleen Stillman's estate, and I did the same with just a note reinforcing our appreciation for the bequest from her estate. And that's all I have. Anybody
Harry,
else?
could I just add 2 information points? The
Yes,
meeting
go ahead.
tomorrow of the peer group is at 10 o'clock,
Yep.
if anyone is interested. And the 16th is actually a Friday.
Yes, it is. That's right.
Mhm. Yeah.
Above, let's see. Anything else in the way of just updates, housing related updates?
There's one other meeting
Yeah.
this week too. Well, there are a couple, but Mass Housing Partnership on Wednesday has a panel discussion on regional approaches to affordable housing. That's at 12. The CDP sent out their newsletter today, which has all this gathered into one place. If you're not on their mailing list, I'll forward it to you, because it's a great gathering of everything that's happening in all the Lower Cape towns.
Mhm.
And then, of course, tomorrow night, Sharon is bringing the ADU bylaw to the select board.
Yep.
Okay, I put on the agenda the next item, which is to reconsider the position that we've taken on the short-term rental tax. And I did that for two reasons. One, because it looks like the current year FY21 budget is a bit of a disaster for a couple of reasons. And it looks like next year's budget will also be a bit of a disaster. Specifically, next year's budget in its current incarnation shows a deficit of around, I don't know, $300,000, even after applying the entire estimated short-term rental tax income. And I think that we're still working on understanding why that is, but I suspect that there's not going to be a lot of short-term rental tax income either in this fiscal year or in the next that's going to be really up for grabs in a policy discussion. And to my perspective is it's perhaps bad politics to be asking for a slice of the pie when it's clear that there's not enough pie to go around already. So I just would like to hear from all of you about my concerns and whether I should still press forward with asking the select board to commit the currently unencumbered this year's short-term rental tax, and also to ask for 80% of next year's short-term rental tax. So I think there is still time to make the request, but I have not made it since our March 29th meeting when we voted to do it.
Yeah, I think if we had known that situation, we probably would have had a bit of a different discussion about it. So I feel like it would be overreaching to ask right now.
Yeah, and my sense is that the deficit is not structural, that it's more an artifact of COVID expenses that have not been reimbursed, and also a bit of a mystery about the June 30th, 2020 status of the town's finances because of the accounting office issues. So I don't expect that this is a forever situation, but I do think that it, I don't know. So at any rate, that's what drove my decision to sit on this for 2 weeks, and you can either shoot the messenger and instruct me to proceed, or say that that was probably the right thing to do, or suggest something different.
My concern with taking that information and making a new decision is, are we privy to information that others may not be? And will another group or special interest make the request? It concerns me that a precedent be set. It's frustrating that we're in that situation as a town. But I'm concerned that if this is a new revenue stream that does not get allocated or spoken for, or asked for by us now, does it get spoken for? Does somebody say, when it's available, we want 50% of it? And because nobody knows that we're being polite and trying to do the politically correct thing, do we now go to the back of the bus?
Well, maybe one of the things we can do is sort of a temporizing move to say, yeah, we really want it, but rather than ask today, we're just going to let you know we want it, and we'll be back when we think that that there actually are some funds that would be available.
Was our request supposed to be on the warrant, though?
Well, that's another thing. I'm not, in connection with the town's budgeting issues, the select board asked me to take a look at it and make some suggestions to the town administrator. And in doing so, I have sort of come to the conclusion that unlike some specific funds like beach fund and ambulance fund that are statutory creatures where you can direct receipts, this is really a policy decision that's made every year rather than I don't know. I guess I just don't know the answer to that. Yeah, I think that we should certainly, I'm sorry, I was just distracted by the cat. The cat disappeared for over 24 hours and we were concerned. But he's back. So
Muzzle tough.
lost my train of thought. So I think we should certainly make our wishes known, but I think that to ask that the select board take a specific action or that the town meeting take a specific action at this time might not be the right thing to do.
I tend to agree with Kathleen that if these things left alone too long, just become part of the general fund. And at that point, that they may rest that way because, I mean, this is a new revenue stream. So last year's the first year we got it. And I guess, thank goodness we got it during that COVID shortfall. But if we're not seeing a structural problem with our revenues as a town, that I would prefer that this funding stream is requested, and whether that be to the board or to the town, I think probably to the board first, and then to the town at a point where we feel like there is the resources that the town could support something like that in a town meeting, right? So I guess allocating funding towards the housing trust out of this money, let's say future funding, let's say, not dipping back into the past, but future funding go towards the housing trust. If the select board were to support that, it would set a precedent that this money is allocated there. And then asking for the taxpayers at town meeting to continue to support that seems like an illogical next step, I guess. So I think, I still am not quite sure, I haven't wrapped my head around what's going on exactly in the budget, and the free cash from the last 2 years is still uncertified, I believe. And I'm not totally sure what's going on there. Harry probably has a better idea than I do. But I think it might be prudent to take the step to ask the select board on a policy basis to, direct to allocate funding to the trust, future funds, a portion thereof, whatever, and take that step in making the request. Whether the board does that or not, I can't speak for the board,
Yep.
I can just speak for myself. So
I would agree with you, Mike. I think that's the route to go. At least make our request known that when funds are available, that, we'd like to get in line. That's essentially it.
We want to be first in
First
line.
in line, yes.
First.
I was gonna say the
or
same.
maybe to actually request for a fiscal year, like beginning fiscal year,
Right.
so that money can be expected to be going that way
Mhm.
and can't just be sort of used to fill budget holes or to,
It will
bump
always- Right. It will be self-fulfilling, I think, if we
Right.
don't,
If we don't.
put a
We ha-
stake in the ground. And if it's not available for FY21, we understand.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There've been some irregularities, but it's hard to believe that there wouldn't be a surplus for FY22 as of July 1st, because we would, if we don't have a structural deficit,
Right.
then it's a short-term issue.
Yep.
Regardless of the source, but it's got to be resolved, because in theory, we have to have a balanced budget. So if we ask for it for FY22 going forward, and I think as others have said, if we don't ask for it, we won't get it, number one.
Let me understand, Harry, were you saying, and I thought this was the case, that we are facing in FY 22 a deficit at this point of like 300,000?
Yeah, at the budget that the selectmen saw last Monday, it was about 450,000. But there's been an adjustment, so I think it's around 300,000 now. It's the latest, that was the most recent thing I heard.
Harry, was that
yeah.
like, this may be a little bit off topic, but was that like taking the funds that we had put back into the department budgets that bumped it up to that 400,000? Because the bottom line deficit that we were presented with was 330,000. And then there was the porta potty beach fund error that subtracted 150,000 from that
Okay.
number. But then there was a bunch of money missing out of the department budgets that we reallocated to police, fire, and something else at that meeting. And maybe I just need to talk to you.
And yeah, and there are some other suggestions I made to Maria about some things that could be consolidated into one account and reduced. But so maybe the problem isn't quite as big as I led with tonight, but it's still there. And the budget does have to be balanced. There's no deficit funding alternative for operating budgets for Massachusetts towns.
But can I make a point that
Sure.
I had discussion earlier today on this with a couple of people on the select board, as well as with Maria on this. And for the water commission, the enterprise fund, right now is projected with a deficit of close to 100,000. Close to 90,000. And that has to do with that there was no subsidy put in from the general fund at this point, which has been something that has been used for the past several years now. So, and there really is no other source to fill that gap at this point.
Yep.
So I think we're facing it. It's real for 23 or for 22.
Yeah.
That we're going to have this kind of a deficit.
While all of that is the way it is, I think that in this committee, if Harry didn't exist, we would not be having this conversation, one. Two, our work is urgent.
Mhm.
So for us to be polite because the town has somehow fouled up the financial situation, I just don't think is the route we should take. I think we are the spokespeople for this crisis, and we need to proceed forward as such.
The other thing I would just say is that, the budget was balanced in the 2019 budget was balanced without short-term rental funds. So,
Yeah.
I mean, at a certain point, there's going to be a reconciliation of, receipts and expenditures. And we know like that wages and salaries continue to rise higher than the tax rate. And that's, to some degree, there's ways to deal with that, but it can't be this out of balance from 2019 going forward, having not utilized short-term rental money to balance our budget year in and year out before we started receiving the fund. So
Yeah.
I just think that, structurally, you have to decide are we going to try and balance the budget using this new revenue source and then putting everything back into free cash? Because we have been able to run a surplus really where we're every year putting money into the stabilization fund or into free cash up until 2020, right?
Yep.
So it just seems to me that, yes, there's a problem right now, but allocating the funding from the short-term rental revenue, at least a portion thereof, still leaves us in the place we were in 2019, give or take a little bit of salary increases, but also we should be seeing other increased revenues as a result of non-COVID situation. We know it's going to be a busy summer.
Marijuana tax.
And there's going to be marijuana tax. And then also, our property values have risen substantially. And I don't know the calculation on how that increases our bottom line.
That's a zero-sum game, Mike,
Right,
because
it drops with the,
yeah, the Proposition 2.5, the limitations are on the amount of money you can raise by taxation, not
Right.
on how the tax rate changes.
right, okay.
So if valuations double, the tax rate gets cut in half.
Right.
And if valuations get cut in half, the tax rate doubles.
And then there are, like Eastham had to do some sort of yearly override. I think that I don't know exactly what happened, but they felt like their operating budget they'd outgrown it basically. And I don't know
Yeah.
how they did that.
Yeah, I mean, Wellfleet's done 3 operating budget, general government overrides in the last 15 years.
Right.
But, I guess let me kind of say this. We're not going to solve this problem tonight, but
No.
what I take from this conversation is that I should forge ahead with at least the request for FY22 and beyond allocation of these funds.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
Just not just forget about FY21, which has got only 3 months left to run anyway.
I don't think that there's going to be I don't think that's a politically wise thing to do. It's when there's a deficit, first of all.
Yep.
Like a current deficit, especially given the short time we have to resolve it,
Mhm.
and the lack of knowing what our total surpluses are, our cash on hand is.
Okay.
But I don't know what it is. Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe
So were
somebody's-
we basically agreed that we should leave the vote on FY22 and beyond request in place and just not pursue the one for FY21?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll just treat that as a consensus.
How would we encourage the select board to go up to 6% too? I mean, we're looking at banner summers coming up and
Mhm.
many towns around us are doing it. It seems like that would be something they would want to do.
Well, Provincetown is, Brewster is, Eastham is discussing it.
Yes.
I have not heard anything about Truro or Orleans.
So I was planning on bringing that to the select board, but I haven't drafted anything to bring to them. But
No.
I'm not sure if Ryan is. I think at a meeting he's brought that up, raising the rate to 6%. I know he's working on the transfer tax thing right now, but I would assume that would be something that the board would want to take up.
Yeah, and it's a 1 sentence town meeting vote, so it's not a complicated thing to do.
Yeah, I just haven't gotten to it. So
Okay, well, let me just, can I treat this as being resolved?
yes,
Okay, good. Executive session minutes. I just wanted to talk about procedure. And there's always this kind of chicken or the egg problem with executive session minutes, because if you're going to vote to approve them, you have to vote in an executive session, and that just creates another executive session for which there are minutes, and it never ends.
Yeah.
So, I went on the Inspector General's website, and they say that there are 3 ways that boards can approve minutes. They can either designate some individual on the board to approve the minutes on his or her own initiative. You can approve minutes on an exception basis. In the absence of objection, you can approve the minutes. Both of those have the virtue of being able to do it in a public session without disclosing what's in the minutes. And then the third one is to vote on the minutes, and that has to be an agenda item. And if it's an executive session minutes, it has to be in executive session. So I would kind of suggest to you that maybe we should deal with our executive session minutes by circulating them before the meeting and then seeing whether there is an objection, to avoid going into executive sessions just to deal with minutes.
Sounds
Like a good plan.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. And then we can always, when we have an executive session, catch up on any executive
Yep.
session. Because as long as they don't go too long, because we're not necessarily releasing them, so they have to be approved. But I know on the board, sometimes they go quite a while until we have another executive session before we approve the minutes. And I don't know. if
Yeah.
that's-
Okay. Well, what I'll do is,
Like, we never have meetings to just approve minutes. It's
Yes.
always, the next time there's an executive session, we might have 3 things of minutes to approve by the time
Okay.
it's actually gotten to us.
okay. We'll see how that works. Let's see. So we got 2 more things to do in open session. One of them is minutes, and the other one is to consider when we want to hold another meeting. And as far as holding another meeting goes, I would that perhaps should be driven by events rather than scheduling meetings to have meetings. Comments? Gary?
Yes, Harry, we had talked about a couple of things that I'd like to suggest for a future meeting agenda. One is the idea of, is there a possibility to reach out to current property holders about the vacant land? And we had generated a list of all the vacant land in town and whether we should send out some kind of a letter or something like that. So that's one thing I'd like to put on the agenda.
Okay.
And the second thing is that we've been doing some work in the partnership about can we make house building a viable strategy? This comes out of the concern that our buy down program, which is based upon giving out a grant of 175,000, just looks increasingly like it's just a shortfall that between what the average person can afford by way of a mortgage plus 175, and given the DHCD limits of approximately $400,000 for a house that is deed restricted, there isn't much in the way of Wellfleet that they're going to find. And we're just hitting our heads against the wall. And so the alternate strategy is, can we build, and can we build for people in the 80 to 120% of AMI? And we've been trying to make some inquiries about that, but I'd like to add that to our future
Yeah,
agenda.
I've been thinking about that as well, and I kind of wonder whether it's possible to find an appropriate house and just buy it and resell it with a deed restriction, and as opposed to trying to build one. And I don't know whether that's a sanctioned strategy or not, but we have a lot more houses than we have vacant lots in Wellfleet. Karen?
I feel like there's some buildings in the downtown area, the central district, that could be, I keep going back to that one on School Street. that isn't on the market now, but was, and I think I think they're probably gonna put it back on. I think they just took it off for the winter. Where they have an ADU in the back. And the front house actually has 2 front doors. And I've been in it, but it's not, I mean, it needs some work, but I'm just wondering, could it be divided into, the front house be divided into 2,
Condos.
duplex or whatever, and with the ADU, and then you might have 3 dwelling units that maybe could be condoized, or, anyway, I think some of the rural district buildings are right for that.
I think there are a lot of strategies. Maybe it's under the general heading of giving the rising house prices in Wellfleet and the fact that the income for the average person is not rising. How do we make home ownership a reality? And specifically, whether we can do anything to assist the shellfishing community for those who require a Wellfleet residence.
Okay, so I'm sorry, go ahead,
Oh,
Michael.
sorry. So an agenda item basically on strategies to provide housing opportunities,
I think home ownership in this case.
home
Michael,
ownership.
Right.
Okay, strategies to provide home ownership could be the open agenda item where we could
Okay,
discuss all those things.
okay. So when would you guys like to meet to discuss these things?
I mean, we've been meeting 2 weeks. I don't have a problem doing that.
I'm okay with that. That's today's the 12th and 14th is 26th.
Uh,
Go ahead, Sharon.
oh, yeah, the 26th, that's right.
Mondays are okay for me. I don't have select board meetings on Mondays. I usually have Mondays kind of open, so.
Mhm. So is Monday, the 26th, again, 7 o'clock, okay with people?
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll put together an agenda and I will circulate a draft so you can ask me to add things or fix things before then. Okay?
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else before we go into executive session?
No.
Do we need to approve minutes?
Right.
Oh, yes. We have minutes from March 29th. And we have open and executive session minutes from April 2nd.
They're excellent.
Mhm.
I would move we approve the minutes of March 29th.
Second.
Okay, hang on a second, I gotta catch up. 329, Elaine, and Gary. Is there any discussion on those minutes? Nope. How about, we'll do this in one motion. How about the open session minutes for April 2nd?
There were a couple of small typos.
Okay, let me find the document.
While Harry's looking, I do want to say that the CDP peer group meeting tomorrow is almost on the very topic. We're talking about creative solutions and designs for community housing. So with the guy from the Island Housing Trust who does amazing work.
Okay, so so here are the April 2nd minutes, and you had a couple of corrections, Kathleen?
Yeah, so under 6C, on the 4th line from the bottom, it should say at the end of that sentence, the entire short-term rental tax, and it says not.
Oh, okay, you're on the March 29th one, I'm sorry.
Oh, is that what it is? Oh, I'm sorry. It
That's
says
all right, that's
April
all
1st.
right.
I'm sorry.
Okay, we'll get that one up.
Okay, and then on the same thing on March 29th, on item 7, it seems, I got a little lost, like you're about halfway down and it says, Mr. Turkanian noted the parcel area suggested support of up to 16 bedrooms, period.
The area of the parcel? Is that clearer?
Well, no, it's like, then after that, there's a period,
Oh,
all that, and I'm kind of,
yeah.
and it
That's
says
above there.
there are, it
But
seems like it got
he-
a little lost in there.
He also noted that. We'll
There
put a-
are, they'll lose the.
We'll put a subject and a verb.
And get rid of the in front of there.
That,
There are.
yes, yep, got it. I'm just, okay. And you had something above Kathleen also? In paragraph 6?
On C, yeah. If you go down to the end,
Yep,
where it says, the fourth line up from that page, the end of it says the entire shot term, it should say short term down. So you're
there we go, I got it.
perfect.
That one, both the spell check and I missed that one. Okay, anything else on March 29th?
No, I didn't notice anything.
Okay, how about April 2nd?
Nope.
Nope.
I think I got a spelling error here. Detrimental.
Oh, yeah, that the open one, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so why don't we just, can I get a motion to approve the March 29th minutes and the April 2nd open session minutes?
So moved.
So that's Jim. Is there a second?
Second,
Kathleen? Okay, let me close these both so I can see who's who. Save. And save. And let me get back here. Oh, come on. Where'd you guys go? Stop sharing. Okay. So in favor, Kathleen,
aye.
Elaine,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Sharon,
Aye.
chair votes aye. That's 7 in favor, none opposed. I'll leave the April 2nd executive session minutes unless you can all tell me you have no objection to them in their present state.
Are we going into executive session right now?
Yes, we are.
I guess my suggestion is to just take care of it while we're in the executive session,
Okay.
because we're already going in.
Okay, so executive session. Purpose for convening the executive session is to further consider possible purchase of 30 Old Kings Highway and or 45 Wilton's Way, Wellfleet. As chair, I'm also stating the board will adjourn from the executive session and will not reconvene in open session. And also as chair, I'm stating that having a discussion in open session would have a detrimental effect on the board's negotiating position. So having made those 3 required statements, we will take a roll call vote to enter executive session and not return to open session. Kathleen,
Aye.
Elaine,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
and Sharon,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, so I'm going to adjourn the open session. I'm going to stop recording and we will reconvene in executive session.